I want to talk to you about blatant betrayal. So I'm going to show you some pictures behind me at the moment. What you're going to see is old people, an old lady actually, I think. And you're going to see one person struggling with heating, and they've got a tiny little heater, and another woman struggling with food. Okay. Now let's move on to our ex-servicemen. These people were sent away by the British state to go and defend whatever it was abroad. Okay. And while they were there, they ended up seeing sights that a normal human being should never see. And they came back broken. So broken that they couldn't carry on with the life they had. Their relationships broke down. Their ability to be able to be around people broke down. Their mental health collapsed. They have PTSD and numerous other untreated things that they ended up being on the streets. And that's where they stayed. Now, you're going to see a soldier behind me at the moment. Now, I would tell you to go and speak to him and see how he's been betrayed by the state, but you can't. He's dead. Yes, he froze to death out in the streets. Now, we're in winter at the moment, and it is cold, right? And many old people will struggle between feeding themselves or putting the heating on. There's many people who are homeless on the streets that will die. I mean, there's people in their houses that will die of exposure, let alone the people out in the streets. So now I want to bring you to this video. This is a video of a person that went all the way through Europe, enjoying all of the benefit system, had pictures of them taken by the Eiffel Tower, and ended up in this country. Now, what he's showing you is the money that he's amassed through ill-gotten gains. Yes, criminality. But what you might also take into account is the lovely surroundings. Those surroundings are paid for by you, the taxpayer. This person is not just slightly taking the piss, he's laughing his fucking ass off at you. He hates you, he hates your people, and he's going to bleed your country dry. But he's not alone. There's thousands more like him coming in here. And the first thing they do is they turn to criminality. Now, many people go, how do you know he's a criminal? Well, he's a fucking criminal by the way he come in here, you mug. At the end of the day, when you lose your ID at every different country you go to because you're instructed to by some piece of shit fucking deluded NGO, right? Then you've already broken the law. I mean, how many war-torn countries did he walk through in Europe? Because I assume he didn't walk on water like old JC, straight from wherever he's alleged to have come from, whatever war zone. Or was he persecuted because he was gay? He doesn't look gay, I have to say, if there is a look. What he looks like is a fit, young, arrogant, bolshy piece of shit wanker who's rinsing the fucking system out for every fucking penny he can whilst making large sums of money through ill-gotten gains. Now, I'm not entirely sure how he made that. There are people pointing at criminality like drug dealing and other things like that, but we'll leave that aside. But you can be fairly safe to say that he didn't get that on handouts, although I would safely say that the people like him will have a lot more money in their account than, say, for instance, an old person who's paid taxes all their life and who is now being cast on a heap. Now, there was a bloke who's died recently. Good. He was a piece of shit. And he used to have a saying for old people, useless eaters or useless feeders, something like that, right? And he thought that basically as soon as a person's got to the end of their working life, they're no use to the state. And the sooner they die, the better. Now, this is something that's been sort of permeated from him all the way through Western governments. They don't like their old. They've had their lot out of them, and they don't really look after them. And they also don't look after their servicemen, because once they've rinsed the lifeblood out of them and put them through the meat grinder, they're no fucking use to them, and they cast them aside, which is why you'll see a lot of servicemen on the streets. Now, just think about this. Both the old people and the service people freezing to death this winter, while that fucking parasite that you're seeing behind me at the moment, right, is boasting on social media about how much money he's making. So, because this is another thing. It doesn't matter how much money he has, you can't buy class. And that is probably the least classy and most brain-dead fuck thing to do, is throw money on the floor. But, well, that's what he's like. And there's many, many others like him at the moment that have come over here from countries that aren't at war, all right, where there's no risk, and they've come here to deal drugs, money laundering, racketeering, prostitution, child trafficking, and numerous other things. And they hate you. Oh, and by the way, every now and again, they go a bit postal because something annoys them and they end up getting all Alan Snack Bar and they go stabby, stabby. And when interviewed, they just say, I was angry or I didn't like it. But the problem is they go for the weak in the community, the kids, the women, the weak men. They don't always go for a strong bloke because, hey, nobody wants to lose, right? But I wanted to show you this because when I looked at that, I thought, you fucking wanker. Now, I have to say that I actually believe that the grounds are being watered, fertilized, whatever it is. The system is brewing up what's going to be civil war. It needs it. Now, I've spoken about this numerous times, so I'm not going back into it. But they want this. So they're bringing in people who detest you, who will rinse your benefit system, take the piss out of your generosity. Well, actually, when I say generosity, we weren't asked, because if we'd have asked, we'd have told them to get fucked. But nevertheless, here we are. So your taxes go on stuff like that. Now, some of you may actually have a family. Some of you may be on low income. And some of you may be wondering about how you're going to pay the bills this month and next month going forward. How, if we have a particularly cold winter, are you going to afford to heat the house, the flat, or wherever it is you live? Now, I've lived in a van. I've been homeless. I've lived through winter in a car and a van. I know how fucking cold it gets. So I know roughly how cold that soldier would have felt, right? I don't know anything else about how he would have felt because I've not been where he's been. But I feel truly sorry that the system itself has betrayed the old people and the soldiers and let them freeze to death and starve to death while they put scum like that wanker in that hotel room up. It fucks me off. And I want to show you and make it fuck you off, because we have to get so angry that we will end up doing something, because otherwise this is just going to go on and on and on. And the system itself will just call you all the names under the sun and hope that you go run away scared because you don't want to be called names. I think we're well past that now. Anyway, I will leave you to it. I may well do a live stream later on, and I'll catch you in a bit.